Hello everyone and welcome back to the Palettefull Packs channel. My name is Monique Renee and today I have got the Young Artist box for February. After you move all the squigglies out of the way, you are going to find this pack of Tombow dual brush pens. This is a 6-pack of water-based pens, and the cool thing about these guys is that they have two sides. One side is a brush nib, and the other side is what's called a bullet nib. You are also going to find a set of Micron pens. These are a great universal artist pen that so many artists use, including myself. We've got one more Tombow brush pen in here. This time it's in black. And the last thing in here is a Strathmore mixed media sketchbook. Alright, so here we have all of our supplies. I'm now going to teach you guys a little bit about the supplies before we go into an illustration. These are water-based markers, which means that you can activate the ink with water or you can leave the ink as it is. Like we saw before, we have two different sides to this. This is the brush nib, and this is going to be able to create almost a paintbrush effect. It's also easier to blend with this side. On the other side, we have the bullet nib, which is a fine point, and this is good for like outlining or small details. Because we have so many colors in the same kind of color range, green, we are going to be able to blend these colors together very easily. Next up, we have our Micron pens. We have 3 different sizes, 05, 03, and 01. As you can see, these guys are pretty fine. The great thing about Micron pens is that they are so universal for so many different kinds of art. They are waterproof, they are fade resistant, they are pH neutral, and they are quick drying. So if you've ever used a pen and you're in the middle of drawing with your pen and your hand smears the ink, don't worry, that's not gonna happen with these guys. Like I mentioned before, so many artists use these, and I myself have a pretty large collection of Micron pens because I love them so much. And then we have our sketchbook. This is a Strathmore mixed media sketchbook, and I adore Strathmore paper. The mixed media paper is ideal for both wet and dry mediums, so that's perfect because we do have these water-based pens. Another really cool thing about this is if you flip over this cover, we can actually customize this cover of our sketchbook. So what we are going to do is I'm going to teach you some different techniques how to use these pens and also how to use these brush markers. We're going to do some practice, and then for our final illustration, we are going to customize this cover of our sketchbooks. Let's get started. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this cover and tear it off. This is the cover that we will be customizing toward the end of this video. But to begin, we're going to open up to our first page and we are going to start practicing. So the very first thing we are going to do is we are going to do a warm-up. I know for beginning artists, using pens can be a little bit intimidating, and I know it was a bit intimidating for me myself when I started. Pens are permanent and you can't erase them, and that can be a little daunting. What we are going to do is take our 05 pen and we are just going to start sketching. And what we're doing is we're just warming up. You can sketch whatever you want, but we are just going to start doodling. The goal is not to draw something super pretty or something super finalized, it's just to warm up our hand and get used to drawing with a pen. You can draw a face, like what I'm kind of doing. Or if you need help, you can pick something off your desk and draw that. I've got this tiny pair of scissors, so I'm just going to put that on my sketchbook and sketch it out. As you can see, I'm being very loose and very messy and sketchy, and that's perfect. We just want to familiarize ourselves with the feel of the pen in our hand. Some things to keep in mind as you're doing this: try not to press too hard on the pen. You can split the nib if you put too much pressure on it, which I've definitely done in the past. So try to just create a very light pressure. And what we are going to do is just fill up this book with a bunch of little doodles. If you would like to, you can also take the other pens and see how those feel as well. We started with the 05, which is going to be the thickest. Then as the numbers get smaller, the nibs are going to get smaller as well. So this is the 03, And this is the 01, which is the smallest that we have. If you simply can't think of anything to sketch, don't worry. What you can do is you can just sketch circles. Sketch circles, sketch lines. Just put anything down on the paper to start getting used to the pen. You can do ovals, triangles, squares. Just try to loosen up your hand. I find that when you start drawing with pens, it's so easy to be so stiff and you like tense up and then your lines get kind of squiggly. That is not what we want. We want to be very loose. We want to be very comfortable with the pen. Once you have pretty much filled your page with random squiggles, random doodles, you kind of feel a little bit more warmed up, we're going to move on to our next step. Now, what I want you to do is draw 3 rectangles. Don't worry if they're not straight, this is just for practice. Now, this top rectangle we are going to label hatching. This next one is going to be cross hatching. And the third one is going to be stippling. Now these are all techniques that you can use with a pen to add value. Value is when something looks lighter or darker to create a sense of depth. The first one is hatching. Hatching is a series of lines going in the same direction. So to make this side look darker and this side look lighter, we're going to start with a bunch of lines, and over here we're going to start with them very close together. As you start getting toward the middle, we're going to start kind of spacing them farther and farther apart until they're so far apart that it looks lighter. Now we have a bit of a gradient, and this tricks your eye into saying, oh, this side is darker and this side is lighter, because this side has all the lines very close together, and over here the lines are farther apart. Now, cross-hatching is very similar to hatching, except we have lines going in opposite directions. So we will have some lines going this way and some lines going this way. So we're going to do the exact same thing as we did with hatching. Start over here with the lines very, very close together. And those lines are going to get farther and farther apart as you continue. Now, the thing that's going to be different is we're also going to have lines going this way. So we want to put these lines over here where it's going to be darker. And we can have more lines over here in between, and then less lines going out. This just creates a bit more dimension. Now we're going to try stippling. Stippling is very fun. Stippling is a series of dots, and again, the closer the dots are, the darker the area is going to appear, and the more spaced out they are, the lighter. This also takes a bit more time, so feel free to take your time on these. So we're going to start by creating a bunch of dots, very dense, very close together over here. And like I said, this could take a while. Another thing is you can vary the size and the spacing of the dots. You can make them uniform, or you can make them a bit more erratic, like what I'm doing. That is up to personal preference. See, this area over here looks dark, whereas this area over here looks light. These are the most commonly used methods of creating value with pen. Now there is another kind of trick I want to teach you guys with pen. When you start drawing, you draw so much with your wrist. So if you want to create like a straight line, you might go like that. But then if you want to do it across the whole page, you kind of have to lift your hand up to create more lines because your range of motion with your wrist is very limited to this. However, it is better to draw with your whole arm. And I know this feels very weird when you start, and I It took me a long time to kind of be comfortable with this, but try to draw with your whole arm, because then you have a much wider range of motion. You have your whole arm to draw with instead of just your wrist. So feel free to practice moving your entire arm instead of just your wrist. Okay, now we are going to play with our Tombow pens. What I want you to do first is do some swatching. If you're new to this channel, swatching is when you test out an art supply on a piece of paper to see what it's going to look like. We're going to take our lightest pen, and you can tell which one is lighter because of the number. The lower the number, the lighter it's going to be. So this one is 131, whereas this one is 173. So 131 is going to be lighter than 173. And we're going to just swatch our color, see what it looks like. Be sure to try both sides too to get a feel. And we are going to do that with all of our colors. So here are the colors that we've got. All right, now we are going to practice blending. What we're going to do is we are going to work from the darkest color to the lightest color. Take your darkest color, and we're going to be using the brush nibs. And what I want you to do is just create some lines vertically. Then we're going to take our next color, and we're going to go over that part, but draw it out a little bit. We're going to take our next color, and we're going to start where the other color stopped. Draw it out. And we're going to repeat with all of our colors. Start back here and draw the color outward. Start back here, draw the color outward. Start back here, draw the color outward. As you can see, we have a really beautiful gradient going from a dark green to a light green. This is how you blend the colors together. You blend them by kind of going over them with a darker or lighter color and drawing the color in the direction you want to blend it. To further illustrate this, I'm going to draw a circle right here. Doesn't have to be a perfect circle, don't worry. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start with our darkest color, and we're going to place it down right here. This is where our shadow is going to be. Then we're going to take our lighter color and draw that darker color outward. And we're going to keep going, keep drawing the color. You'll be able to see as you are doing this, you can see the colors blend on the paper. Feel free to go over some areas a few times if it's not quite blending the first time. And there we go. See how beautiful it is? Oh, I love working with green. Okay, now we are going to work on our final illustration, which is going to be our sketchbook cover. Now, if you have an idea that you would like to draw, go ahead, feel free to draw that. But if you kind of are lost, don't have any ideas, don't worry, I'm going to be taking you step by step as I design mine. So feel free to follow along. What we are first going to do is we're going to take a pencil, it can be any old pencil, and we're going to start sketching. So because I have all of these beautiful green colors, what I wanted to do was draw something with a lot of leaves, something very plant-like. So what we're going to do is we're going to start sketching our leaves. We're going to start with a shape that kind of looks like this, a bit of a pointy, rounded shape. And we're going to make another leaf going like this. Then we're going to mirror this shape on the other side. Don't worry if it's not totally even or if your shapes look a little bit different than mine. The great thing about drawing plants is that plants are organic, so they're all going to look a little bit different and they're all going to kind of have their own little personality to them, and that is great. That's kind of what we want. So now that we have these shapes, what we're going to do is actually go back in and create smaller pointed shapes, just like that. And we're going to make the points kind of reach the end of this shape and then come back toward this stem. And we're going to continue that all the way down. This creates a fun kind of fern-like plant. And again, we're going to do the same thing on this side. Don't worry if yours looks messy too, because we're going to erase these pencil lines once we add our pen lines. Awesome. And now we're going to repeat this step a few times. So I want a leaf to come out this way. I'll have another one come out this way. So it'll look kind of like that. I want another one to come up this way. And we're going to repeat again. Feel free to pause this video too if you need to take a little bit more time making your leaves. I've drawn these a bunch of times over and over again, so I'm pretty used to it. But if you're taking a little bit more time, feel free to take all the time that you need. Let's have one going down this way. That could be cool. Now, what I want to do is also draw some flowers. So I'm going to start by drawing a circle here and a circle here. And I'm going to draw a smaller circle in the middle. And I'm just going to draw a very simple flower. I'm going to draw the petals. Just like that. Going to have the petals reach all the way to the edges of that circle and go all the way around. Now we're going to draw a little stem just coming out of the side, just like that. Now what I want to do over here is I'm going to create a half circle shape, just like that. Again, mirroring it on the side. And I'm going to draw a stem coming off of it like this, almost like a lamppost. And now I'm going to draw the petals coming out that way. Maybe have some more coming off right there. There, and that looks like this, the flower is kind of like on its side. Now what we're going to do here in the middle is we're going to write our name. So I'm going to write my nickname, which is Momo, right there. Okay, so we have our sketch. Now comes the exciting part. We are going to take our 05 pen, and what we're going to do is we are just going to outline all the lines that we want to keep. So I have these kind of like extra lines here in this circle. We're not going to draw over that. We're only going to draw what we want to keep. So I'm going to just start and I'm going to trace over those lines. And I'm going to try to be as clean as I can, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. Another thing that helps me when I'm inking is sometimes I will move my canvas around so that it's easier. This is going to differ from person to person, but sometimes it's easier for people to draw up, sometimes it's easier for people to draw down. So whichever is easier for you, feel free to adjust your canvas accordingly. I'm not gonna worry too much about keeping my lines perfect. I'm just going to have fun with it. And there we have our first leaf. So what I'm going to do is go around all of these, and then we will go back and add details that I kind of taught you a little bit earlier. But first we want to make sure we've got all our leaves and flowers outlined. Once we have all of the leaves drawn, what we're going to do is go back in and we're going to draw these stems. Now remember what I said about trying to draw with your whole arm instead of your wrist. So keep your hand steady, keep it in the same place, and we're just going to start at the top, and with our arm we're going to draw all the way down. We're going to go to the other side and draw all the way down. Now, like I said, this does take some time to get used to, so don't worry if yours looks a bit messy. That is a-okay. The only way to get better at drawing is to do it often. You can see there, my hand got a little wobbly and didn't quite match the line that I drew underneath it, and that's fine. And a part of that is because my hand was hanging off the edge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my canvas around and try again on the other side and see if that helps. As you can see, I kind of messed up a little bit there too, but you know what? That's fine. We're gonna keep going. All right, I've got all my little leaves drawn, so now we're going to move on to those flowers. And we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to draw that little circle in the middle, and then we're just going to make those petals. When drawing the stems, remember, keep that hand straight, move that arm instead. And we're going to move on to this little side flower. All right, now last thing, be sure to also write out your name. All right, so now that we have that inked out, we're going to take our eraser and we're going to erase all of those pencil lines. Be careful while you're doing this, especially when you're working on paper, because what I've done also a lot of times is I'll be erasing really, really fast and I end up crumpling the paper underneath. So take your time with erasing. All right, so now we have this to work with, and what we're going to do is we are going to use some of those value techniques that I taught you a little bit before, and we're going to add some interest to our pen lines. So we're going to start with our 03 pen. You can use any method you like, but my favorite method is cross-hatching, so that's what I'm going to do. So wherever we see we have like this leaf is in front of this leaf, we're going to add some like cross-hatching to this bottom leaf. So I'm just going to take my pen and I'm going to keep my hand straight and I'm just going to create lines going in the same direction. And I'm going to add them where this leaf is kind of behind that front leaf. Just like that. So here are my lines, and then I'm going to do the same thing but going the other direction. Just like this. So now it looks like there's a little bit of a shadow cast onto this leaf. I'm going to do the same thing for this leaf right here. Again, don't worry if this looks a little bit messy. Part of the reason why I love this method so much is because it does look messy, and I kind of like the way that messy pen looks. We're going to move up to this leaf and do the exact same thing. Now we have these flower stems too. I'm going to create hatch lines going up. And again, going the opposite way. I'm going to add a little bit of details to the petals and just draw those little lines coming out that you usually see. And now I'll do the same thing on these guys. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is take our pens and we're going to color in these leaves. But what we're going to do is only use 2 colors per leaf. So for these front leaves, because they are the ones that are in front, they're the ones facing the viewer, we're going to color those in our lightest colors. So take your darker one, this is 173, and working a little bit at a time, we're going to color in the bottom side of these leaves. We're going to color in just a few, and then we'll switch over to this marker, and we will blend that out like we did before. This is going to be a lot more subtle because we're only using 2 markers instead of all of them, but trust me, this is going to look cool. So continue that all the way down by coloring half of the leaf with the darker color and then filling in the rest of the leaf with the lighter color. I like to work in small batches because I can really take my time on each little leaf. Again, we are using the brush side of these pens because they are easier to blend together. And I'm going to take our darker color to color in that stem. Now I'm going to take the next 2 colors. These are 195 and 245. And I'm going to do the same thing for this leaf back here. So I'm going to take our darker one and color in the bottom half of the leaf. Then take the lighter pen and blend it out. Just like that. Dark on the bottom half, lighter on the top half. And yes, we are going to draw over these lines that we just made, the cross-hatching lines. When you add the cross-hatching with color, I think it just looks that much cooler. Now we're going to take our last 2 markers. These are 277 and 346 and do the exact same thing. See, now it looks like this leaf is really in front of these leaves because we colored these darker, so they're going to fade into the back a little bit more, while this one is going to be brought forward. Now we're going to color in this leaf the same color as this leaf. Alright, so now we're going to do exactly what we did on this side and do it on this side. Alright, so I just mirrored that like I said, and now we are going to color in the stems of these flowers as well. And I'm just going to take my darkest green and just kind of fill those in. And I'm actually going to leave these flowers blank. I don't really want to color them in green, so I'm just going to leave them as they are. Alright, so we are almost done, but there's one more step that I want to do. What we're going to do is we're going to take our bullet nib of our black pen and we're going to outline each leaf shape. So I'm just going to go around just like this. Again, don't worry if it's not perfect. But what we want is we just want a little bit of oomph, a little drama. See how much this stands out compared to this? So do the same thing for all the other leaves. And you know what? We're even gonna go around the flowers too, because why not? Now we are just going to go on the outside. That's because I want to keep all the little details in here. I want to keep those looking small. So we're just going to go around the outside of everything. See, you can really tell this just looks so much more exciting than this, right? So again, do the same thing on this side. All right, now the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to also go over my name with this thicker pen. And there we go. Our sketchbook cover is complete. All right, so that's going to be the end of this video, guys. I hope you guys drew along with me. If you have your own Palettefull packs and would like to show us your work, you can post to social media, tag us, and use our hashtags. You can use hashtag PalettefullPacks and hashtag PalettefullPrompt. I do hope you guys continue to use these art supplies and fill up this whole sketchbook with awesome, fun pen and marker drawings. Anyway, that's going to be it for me today, guys, so thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all next month for another Palettefull